Hey guys, welcome to the BCS Classic. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you if you're tuning in on the video. Guys, I'm really excited for you guys to hear Bruce Matthews' story. I reached out to Bruce just a few months ago. His son and I are friends, and so his son and I kind of spoke about the event, and through some recommendations, they said Bruce would be an amazing speaker. So I call him, and he's actually about to fly out to the Hall of Fame annual gathering or ceremony. And so he is willing to come, and I am so excited for you guys to hear his story. Bruce, thank you so much for doing this. It means a lot. So come on up, man, and you guys are going to hear from Bruce himself. Thank you. Appreciate you.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Amazing event. I had no idea this equestrian center was here. I thought all the money at Texas A&M went into the football program, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm honored to be here and share my story a little bit. I'd kind of like to brag on my family and kind of tell you my faith journey, and in the process kind of share how God has blessed my family and how it's become glaringly obvious that we've been blessed and we have an opportunity to go and share the gospel with other people. So it's something that I'm really excited about. And first up, on the picture up there, that's the cover of the book that I was fortunate enough to take part in writing. And first off, the picture of me. I remember when that picture was initially taken, you can see the state of Tennessee flag is on our jersey there. That's when we were the Tennessee Oilers. So I was probably in my 16th, 17th year, and I remember thinking, man, I look old and fat. And you talk about perspective and how things change over time. And I look at that picture now, I'm like, man, look at my hair. That's nice, and I'm slim, but the Matthews family, we've had 8 members in it playing the NFL. And you see across the top left is my dad, then my brother Clay, little Clay, who played 10 years with the Packers and is now a Los Angeles Ram. Then Casey, his little brother, my son Kevin in the Titans blue jersey, Jake for the Falcons, and Mike for my son. The 3 on the right are my boys, and like I said, we consider ourselves to be the first family of the NFL. The Manning family have kind of long been anointed, those type guys, but hey, let's face it, they're quarterbacks. Those guys, they don't do any of the heavy lifting. But I had the opportunity to play with Archie Manning. Archie was a quarterback my rookie year with the Oilers when I was drafted in 1983, and just a great honor and privilege to play with Archie. And then ironically, my last Pro Bowl I played in January of 2002, Peyton Manning was the quarterback for the AFC team. And not till a couple years later, or a couple years ago, when Peyton won the Super Bowl with Denver and then subsequently retired, it came out in the press that he told a story to one of his assistant coaches. And he said, I'm never going to be one of those guys that hang around where guys are going to come up to me. Because I went up to Peyton and I go, man, it really makes me feel old that I'm playing with the son of Archie Manning. And he said, I'm never going to be like that. I'm going to get away from the game before that happens. But anyway, what happened was they beat Pittsburgh, the Steelers, in the first round of the playoffs on their way to winning the Super Bowl. And Craig Ironhead Haywood's son, who was a defensive lineman for the Steelers, came up to Peyton and said, hey, Peyton, it's really an honor to play against you. My dad played with you. And Peyton flashed back to that conversation that I had with him, and he goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did the same thing. But kind of looking at this thing, so as I go through this, there's a kid back in high school, Arcadia High School in Southern California, the Apaches. two-time CIF finalist, lost both times, but it was a lot of fun. I went to USC. In 1983, I was the first round pick of the Houston Oilers. Met my wife, Carrie, who was on the brochure at USC, and we got drafted by the Oilers, came down to Houston with no background or any kind of knowledge about Texas and what that was all about. But actually in '78, we drove through College Station going down to Corpus Christi. And I remember thinking, man, it's hot down here. But we have lived in Houston for the most part for 38 years, ever since I got drafted by the Oilers, with a couple stops in between in Tennessee when the team moved. But you know, my goal growing up was to play in the NFL. And it all started with my dad. That's my dad, Clay Matthews Sr. And pardon the language, but my dad, I consider a real badass. He played in the NFL for the 49ers back in the early 50s. He played four seasons over 6 years. And the 2 years that he didn't play, he was in the service and was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. My dad was the heavyweight Golden Gloves boxing champion of Georgia when he went to Georgia Tech. He's in the Georgia Tech Athletic Hall of Fame as a wrestler, and was the president of a Fortune 500 company. And you know, the thing about my dad was he was very accomplished, and all this stuff happened before I was born, but he never pushed anything on us in terms of having to play football. But he had 3 rules, and it was basically, if you're gonna start something, you're not gonna quit, you're gonna see it through. Secondly, you're gonna go full speed, doing whatever the coach tells you. And then lastly, yeah, do whatever the coach tells you. And for me, I switched positions on the offensive line. I've gotten a lot of credit for being so versatile. But I was just doing what my dad told me to do, and that was do whatever the coach tells you to do. In fact, I played every position on the offensive line, and not only that, I was the long snapper for punts and field goals for like 15 years. And, you know, I sometimes look at the NFL roster now, I'm like, I should drop 100 and go out there and cover punts. And, you know, with my salary cap number would be pretty high since I'm 58, but hey, maybe some team would like me in there, kind of speaking to the offensive line. But so that being said, growing up, my goal, I wanted to be just like my dad and my older brother, Clay. It's kind of a small picture, but that's Clay Jr., okay? My brother Clay played 19 years in the league. He's 5 years older than me. And as you can see, he's a little more svelte than myself. I like to say that I have the good marbling, you know, kind of like a ribeye. But my brother was a great player. I really looked up to him growing up, and I wanted to be a linebacker just like him, but I noticed that athletic ability and things of that nature kind of limited me. And I always wanted to hit the guy coming at me instead of the guy with the ball. And I know that's problematic if you're a defensive player. You want to find that guy with the ball. But my brother Clay played 19 years, like I said. He's played the most games in the NFL by a linebacker. I played the most by an offensive lineman. So again, you look at it and it's like, wow, what a blessing. And I'd love to say it was because I was doing CrossFit, and obviously everyone knows that isn't the case, or it was my great diet, and that wasn't the case. God just saw fit to bless the Matthews with bodies you could beat the crap out of, and we were ready to go the next week. Clay's oldest, or his boy, Clay the third, you know, you might recognize that, although it's kind of a small picture. He's got the hair, he's always doing the thing on the sideline, getting it wet, and apparently the ladies really appreciate that. But So he's Clay the Third. We affectionately refer to him as Clay the Turd, but that's another discussion for another time. Then his youngest son, whoops, lost him. His youngest son is Casey Matthews. Casey played 5 years with the Eagles and the Vikings. And it's funny because my brother Clay's a linebacker. All his kids are defensive players. I'm an offensive lineman. All my kids are offensive linemen. Then my first son, Kevin, or actually is our second son, Aggie. He was the one that blazed the trail for all the Matthews kids to the Matthews boys to play at A&M. And it's funny because I came to Texas and first off, growing up, I was a huge Cowboys fan. Loved Roger Staubach, Coach Landry. Used to go out to Thousand Oaks and watch the Cowboys have training camp out there. Just awesome experience for a kid growing up. Got drafted by the Oilers, come down here, all anyone talks about is the Cowboys. So I hated them after like 5 days. And then secondly, UT and A&M. It's like, what? These are two minor league college programs, you know? I went to USC, we're defending national champions. Fight on, thank you. We have no quarterback now, but hopefully we'll find a way. But so then we draft Ray Childress, a great Aggie, right? Defensive lineman. End up playing over him. We fight and practice every day. So I'm like, screw this A&M stuff. I hate him because I don't like Ray Childress. But anyway, as time went on, and ironically, I met a former Aggie named Jason Matthews, a 1T Matthews. And he really sold me on what was going on at Texas A&M. And Kev came to A&M as a walk-on. Really proud of him. He earned a scholarship at A&M, was undrafted, signed with the Titans, made the roster. You know, just a great success story. Played 5 years in the league, and I had the opportunity also to coach him for 2 years. I was the offensive line coach for the Titans, and I tell you what, one of the hardest things I had to do was coach Kevin when we were playing the Texans. And they had this new kid, this new hotshot defensive end named J.J. Watt. And somehow he kept lining up on Kevin. And I'm like, I got to watch the whole line, but all I can watch is Kevin. And old J.J. padded his stats a little bit, but Kevin hung in there and battled. Next up is Jake. That's Jake. He was the number 6 pick by the Falcons in 2014 and having a great year and going into his 6th season now, which is amazing. Then next we got Mikey here, 63 for the Miami. And you can see he's a little shorter than Jake, but again, an Aggie. He was with the Browns, got released, the final cut. The next year was with Pittsburgh, was fixing to make the roster, tore his patellar tendon, and went on injured reserve. Then last year, this was about a year ago, he went through camp with Miami and didn't make it, but you know, a great player. Obviously, I'm very proud of all my kids. And even though Mike wasn't officially on a roster, it was really cool to see him go through it. Next, I got the boy. Luke was born in 1999 on our off day. This was my 17th year in the league. 1999, I don't know if y'all recall, but that was the year the Titans went to the Super Bowl. We lost in the 1-yard short game. Steve McNair had a great game against the Rams. Unfortunately, didn't quite make it. But Luke is our 6th kid, our 4th son, and our 4th boy to play at A&M. So I'm glad I got this morning spot to share with y'all. I have some business at 2:30 today. Hopefully the Ags take care of business and have a great matchup against Clemson. And it's crazy, having come here for, gosh, 12, 15 years now with all the boys playing here, the whole A&M identity and the tradition and stuff has really grown on my wife Carrie and myself, and it's something that we're really excited about and really thankful that God opened that door to our for our kids to go to school here. But anyway, Luke's a backup offensive lineman. Last Thursday night against Texas State, he got his first action, and it was one of those things after the game, the enjoyment that he expressed to my wife and myself. It was like one of those reminders of why you want your kids participating in sports. Because last year, he took an ass whipping. His freshman year was a huge adjustment for him, but you know, he's a backup now. He's down in Clemson. Didn't make any of the road trips last year, so he's really excited about this whole process. So anyway, got drafted by the Oilers in the first round. Beautiful wife. We started having kids. My rookie year, I look around and I'm like, man, I've done everything that I was supposed to do. Got an engineering degree from SC. Met this beautiful girl. I'm married. I'm in the NFL. Have a house. I'm on an NFL team, a crappy one, but we were 2-14 my rookie year. And I'm like, there's got to be something more than this. Is this it? And we had our team chaplain back then, a gentleman named Greg Headington, who kind of discipled me and showed me about Jesus Christ and the gospel and the good news that this world is not all there is, that there is a higher calling for our lives, and that you know, it's more than just going out and trying to acquire stuff and play football and move 300-pound guys 6 inches and be told what a great guy you are. So really, throughout my career, I understood that truth, but at the same time, it really didn't become abundantly clear until we had some hardships. And really, the first thing was when the team moved from Houston to Tennessee, a huge change in our lives. And I was going into my 15th year, and I'm thinking, how many more years do I actually have? So what I did was, I went up, got an apartment, like a 3-bedroom apartment, and Carrie, and we only had 5 kids at this point, came up on the weekends for the home games. And the home games, ironically, were in Nashville, or Memphis. So that would be the equivalent of a team saying they're going to play in Houston next year, but playing their schedule in Dallas, okay? Obviously, the Dallas fans could give two you know what's about that. So it really was a rough year, but God showed me through that how important my family was, how important my relationship with my wife was, how much my faith grew over that year, and how much she meant to me. And then I retired in 2002, and in 2003, here's a picture of the family. And I hate to undersell all this, because on the left, you'll see the dark hair is Marilyn, our oldest daughter. And then the little blonde girl in her arm is our 7th and final child, that's Gwenny. And all the boys are on the right there. But here's a better picture of them. Oh wait, it's at the beginning. This is Gwen and Luke at the scrimmage during fall camp. And Gwenny was our 7th, and she has Down syndrome. And I grew up with 2 brothers, 2 special needs brothers who were Special Olympics athletes. And the funny thing is, they're very much Matthews. And we grew up in Southern California, like I said, and my brothers Brad and Ray, they actually were playing in a charity game against the LA Rams back in the day before they moved to St. Louis and back to LA again, and they got kicked out for playing too rough. So very much Matthews. So I felt like I was prepared if Gwenny was going to be, because there were some markers and stuff that that the doctor pointed out, but it was like, hey, it's cool, we'll be fine with this. But when she was born, it really was a shock to the family. Really mostly about things that she wouldn't be able to do. And Gwenny is mostly nonverbal, which anyone with kids knows isn't always a bad thing, you know? But she is the sweetest demonstrator of what God's unconditional love is all about. And I'm so thankful that God in his wisdom knew to give us a child like Gwen. Her brothers and sister are more compassionate and more loving as a result of her. And Carrie and I can't tell you how much she's affected our lives. And the thing is, what I learned from that was, you know, my whole point as I became a Christian was, I can't wait to the part where there's no more discomfort and pain. I'm looking forward to the good stuff about Christianity and my faith walk with Jesus Christ. And I realized that, first off, that ain't gonna come to a heaven. And that God blesses us by bringing discomfort and pain and trials into our lives to show us how, when we depend on him, that we can be blessed that way. So I think, man, I'm so thankful that God didn't honor what I wanted, but he gave me what was best for myself and my family, and that's our daughter, Gwenny. So we fast forward, and like I said, it was a crazy journey for me, football-wise. Never missed a game due to injury. And if anyone sees me after I get up, and especially if I've been sitting now, it's like, oh my gosh, nice sticks. Takes a little while to get the oil in my knees warmed up. But I think what an amazing sense of humor God has as well. And people always come up to me, and I have 2 big scars on my knee. And tore my right quad tendon coaching my 9-year-old, a 9-year-old football team with Mikey. Which one's he? Mikey, the one in the Aggie uniform right there. All these 9-year-olds are laughing at me. Then I tore my left quad tendon when Hurricane Ike came. Was out chainsawing for a number of hours and slipped and fell. And I remember sitting there after the second time that I tore my quad tendon and thinking, all right, God, this is funny, but it wasn't funny. But I get it. You know, me being a football player is not what this whole thing's about. And really over the course of the last 3 years, my life's taken a different direction. And I think that is understanding that God gave me a platform to share the hope that I have in Jesus Christ with other people. And it's been such an amazing opportunity for me, not only to learn answers to questions that I had about my faith. There were a lot of things when the topic of evolution came up, or why does bad stuff happen to good people, or what's this whole deal about evil? How can a good God allow evil to happen? And learning the answer to that, and then going out and being intentional with other people and understanding, really, when we think about in Luke chapter 15, there are 3 parables. The parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, and the parable of the prodigal son. And how in each of those instances, the individual, the one is so important to God. And just praying, and for me to be more sensitive to the fact that every person is important to God. We all need Jesus Christ in our lives. That's the thing I tell my kids. Jake, the one who's signed the third highest offensive line contract in the history of the league. I mean, he needs that, and he understands that. But that I can see people that way, the way that God sees people. And then secondly, understanding that, man, the pressure is not on us. We don't have to give some great theological discussion or about the treatises of Martin Luther, or things of that nature. We just have to make ourselves available and understand that every opportunity to be in relationship with someone is an opportunity to affect them for Christ. And the bottom line is the results are up to God. And that's very freeing to me, because I always feel like, oh man, I got to say the right thing or this or that. Man, the Holy Spirit's going to do the heavy lifting. So I'm really excited about that. So to close, I guess, obviously we've been blessed. And I understand that, and I see it really clearly now as my kids are kind of going through it. And I'm so thankful for that, to have that perspective. And it's like I said on that picture, perspective is everything. When we look at this life through the lens of, man, we're going to be in heaven one day if we put our faith in Jesus Christ forever and ever. And all the little puny minutia of the day that gets us all worked up is not going to be an issue anymore. And it's something that gives me hope, and it excites me in terms of being able to go out and share my faith with others. So I want to encourage y'all. That's the greatest calling we have, to be intentional of those moments when we have that opportunity to speak truth into people's lives. So that's about all I got. And if anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer.
Throughout your whole, sharing with us, family means from your father to the moment right now, such an incredible journey. How did that take place? Because it's a little different than a common family.
Yeah, I know that I used to think that when we share our faith, it had to be a very specific time. And that isn't the case at all. It's any time we come in contact with another person, just being a good friend, a good brother, husband, father, whatever the case may be, that is an opportunity, because that journey to faith is like kicking the pebble down the road about 250 steps, for lack of a better term. And the opportunity, whether it's just being kind or polite to someone, is an opportunity to move that pebble. And I think, yeah, we have some very kind of unique platform to be speaking off of, our football playing. But at the end of the day, we struggle, we all struggle, and God gives us, through those struggles, through your own experience, just within your circle of influence. We don't have to go to somewhere to do ministry. There are people in our sphere of influence that we should be looking out for, and if we all do that, then there's going to be a lot of people who are reached for Christ. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does,
Yeah.
because I think it makes everyone stronger too.
yeah,
When you
absolutely.
together, I see the sequence of the football family, but that don't happen unless you really are strong together.
Yeah, and the cool thing too is all my relatives and nephews, and they they really take pride in being Matthews, and it's something that they kind of feed off each other and see each other's success and have really enjoyed taking part in that.
19 years in the NFL. Now, if you're a wide receiver or a running back, and somebody says, hey, what's your memorable play from 19 years? They probably have a top 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? I ran 89 yards.
Right.
Or whatever. So if I ask you, in the trenches, getting after it, hitting that guy in front of you, what's one of your top 5 plays? Do you have things like that that are floating around?
It's more about games and situations, I think. And like I said, my brother,
What's your top game?
well, top 23 games are playing
In no particular order.
playing against my brother Clay.
Wow.
So my brother Clay's a linebacker for the Browns. Back in the day, the Oilers and Browns were in the same division. So we play home and home. And for me, especially being on a marginal team, going up to Cleveland, the old Mistake on the Lake, right? And just seeing how much their fans appreciated my brother, and going through the game plan meeting on Wednesday morning and having our offensive coordinator saying, "Now we really got to be control and know where Bruce's brother is." And I'd be sitting there like, yeah, that's awesome. And it really took a while for me to get in the right mindset when we played the Browns, because I went in there first as a little brother and a fan. And I'm like, wait, what's the score? What's going on in the game? What do I have to do? Instead of like when we'd be watching tape, I would always watch what my brother was doing. I'm like, wait, I got a job to do. So those 23 games, I think, they stand alone.
When you say 23 games, 23 times you and he paired up?
Yes.
And the record is? You know what it is. What's the record?
It's 11 and 12, but I'm not sure who has 11 and who has 12. Yeah. Playing in the Super Bowl, I don't think he knows either. But obviously playing in the Super Bowl was amazing. And it really, what was amazing about that was the 2 years in 95 and 96 that we were a lame duck team in Houston. I don't know if anyone recalls that. But the team, it had been announced that the team was moving, and we'd have 10, 15,000 fans unless we played Pittsburgh or the Raiders when all their fans would come in. So it was 2 miserable years. We go up to Tennessee, play a year in Memphis, then the next year at Vanderbilt, which were horrible. So we had 4 years in the proverbial wasteland. And then in 99, we become the Titans and just go on this run, beat Peyton Manning and the Colts, the newly anointed, savior of the league and things of that. And I don't know if y'all recall, but in 99, Jacksonville went 15-3, and the 3 losses were all to the Titans. And so it just things like that, playing on teams with guys who, for the most part, you would never say this guy was an NFL player. But you looked at it and you saw the characteristics of heart and hard work and desire, and just so many great life lessons that you learn through playing football.
Well, who was the guy you dreaded lining up against the most? Or the team, I guess.
All them guys with all pro after their name were pretty good. Your Warren Sapp, Bruce Smith, Howie Long, John Randall, I can keep going, but I think you get the idea.
Was that a long day when you lined up against them?
Well, hopefully for them.
You said
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure
No, it was a great battle, and it was like one of those things where I knew if I woke up in the off season, the day the schedule had been released, thinking about somebody I was going to play in November or December, 6 months away, that, all right, that guy's pretty good. I remember doing that with Howie Long one time. Yeah. The thing about the NFL, though, and the nature of the players there, like, every year when the college football season goes and the worst team in the NFL, they go, well, take Clemson, for example. They went 12-0. And the worst team last year was, who had the first pick last year? Well, say the Cardinals. Excellent. Yeah, Clemson could beat the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals. Ain't no way, and yes, it would be a slaughter in favor of the Cardinals because there's college football, and I'm not trying to demean or diminish their accomplishments, but it's like boys against men. So.
Well, I played college basketball, and in high school you can stand out, and then when you show up at college, man, everybody's good.
Right.
I have no idea what it's like to advance to the NFL. What was your first experience, your first 6 months, your first year? What was that like?
Well, first off,
To your point, college really isn't anywhere near the NFL.
it isn't. And the crazy thing is you get comfortable in your situation. So the Oilers we were very much a rebuilding team. Bum Phillips had always gone for veteran players, and they were cutting all these guys. So we had a bunch of young guys, a bunch of draft picks, and I'm like, man, I'm pretty good. I'm better than a lot of my young teammates. And then once the regular season started, and ironically, my second game we play at the Coliseum against the Raiders, the LA Raiders back then. And it was the year they won the Super Bowl. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, here's Lyle Alzado, Matt Millen, Rod Martin, Lester Hayes, Van McElroy, Mike Haynes, just a who's who. And all these guys are 30-something years old, and it was like, these are real men right here, so it's a huge adjustment.
Lester Hayes was Texas A&M, by the way.
I know that. It's funny, too, that USC played A&M twice. I went to the first one in the Liberty Bowl, I think in '75. SC, we shut A&M out 20-0. And then 2 years later at the old Astro Bluebonnet Bowl, when you all had George Woodard, and we beat you then too. So, where did my kids go to school?
So what was your game like against the LA Raiders, your first year, your freshman year in the NFL?
It was like, yes, sir, Mr. Alzado, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Did he have his way with you?
He was on the other side, actually. I had a second year Howie Long, a rookie Greg Townsend from TCU, and another rookie, Bill Pickell. So my day wasn't too bad. Yes. Yeah, it's interesting when you start going against guys with wife and kids, and there's really something at stake, especially back then when the money wasn't what it was like or what it's like now. So.
You miss it?
The paychecks, yes. No, the camaraderie is like nothing. Put it this way, my last 5 years we played in Tennessee, but we had our house in Texas. So in the off season, I would work out with my boys. They were getting old enough that they were middle school, early high school. So in Texas, I would work out with them, and then I would go back to Tennessee when minicamp started, obviously when training camp started. But I remember always having that angst, like, man, I wonder if I have what it takes still. And every year I would go into that meeting room, the offensive line meeting room, and I would immediately start my smack talk like nothing had changed. And anyone who's been in the locker room knows, you know, you talk about things and that.
There's a lot of smack talk.
Exactly, yeah. In a boardroom, I would be brought in on ethics charges or something. So just the nature of the game, but you get right back in that environment. It's something that you don't ever forget. But any more questions? Everyone watching the game today? Yeah.
17-point spread, is that what it is still?
Yeah, you know.
What toll did, because it's 19 years in the NFL, it's not 19 years playing football. It's closer to 30 years playing football.
Right.
So what toll did football take on your body?
I don't know. My knees are starting to ache. You can kind of see a slight discrepancy in my calves. Ruptured a disc in my back. Let's see what else. My elbows don't quite straighten out, and I can't dunk anymore, but I never could. So.
That's actually how I know Lester Hayes. Lester Hayes was in the gym dunking with me, and what is he, 6'1" or
Yeah.
6 foot or something? But he's a great athlete.
There's some special athletes on a football field that it's an interesting dynamic because not always the best athlete is the most successful, and conversely, you know, there are some special athletes out there.
But even though your body is kind of wounded, if not really wounded, it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. My last thing before closing, you know, the NFL obviously has become more sensitive to the concussion issue, and now at 57, I had a baseline evaluation done with this PhD guy. Kid was like 20 years younger than me, so it was really weird. But we were talking about our families. I said I had 7 kids. He said he had 4 daughters. And I asked him, if your daughters had been sons, would you allow them to play football? And he's studying all this stuff. And he goes, the impact and the values and the lessons, life lessons that you learn in football are well worth the risk. And so I go, whew, thanks, Doc, because my kid's already been playing. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's an honor being here.